Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome. Today's topic is the 1891 Cleveland Spiders MLB baseball season. 1891 was a good year for the Spiders. 1890 had been tough because a lot of guys left to play for the Cleveland Infants in the Players League, and most of those guys were back, and then they had some new additions. The Spiders would become one of the best teams in Major League Baseball in the 1890s. So this is a wonderful story. In fact, they played in 3 World Series in 5 years and won the 1895 World Series. And this was they were taking a step toward that greatness, which they achieved for folks in Cleveland. And again, they were playing baseball in the National League, the senior circuit. And they had a new ballpark, actually Cleveland's first substantial ballpark. League Park was built in 1890, or 1891 rather, located at East 66th Street, Lexington, and Dunham in the Huff neighborhood. It was built in 1891, a wooden structure, and then it was rebuilt in 1910 with concrete and steel. It was located along the streetcar line owned by Spiders owner Frank Robeson. It opened May 1, 1891, Spiders versus Reds. Cy Young was the pitcher for Cleveland, and the Spiders won that game 12-3. There were 9,000 wooden seats. In 1910, the seating capacity was increased to 18,000. Now the dimensions, the left field foul line was 385 feet, center field 460 feet. Wow, so it's almost impossible to hit a home run to dead center. However, right field was 290 feet, with a 40-foot wall in right field, kind of like the Green Monster in Fenway Park. So the League Park became the home field for the Cleveland Spiders up until 1899. The Cleveland Buckeyes in the Negro Leagues played there as well. In fact, the Buckeyes won the 1945 Negro League World Series. Then it was the home for the Cleveland Indians until 1946. The Cleveland Rams in the NFL played there. And it was a Cleveland Browns practice field for many years. Also, it was the Western Reserve College Football home stadium. Most of the structure was demolished in 1951. However, the original ticket office remains. In 2014, it was rededicated as the Baseball Heritage Museum and Fannie Lewis Community Park at League Park. There were 4 World Series played there, 1892, 95, and 96 with the Spiders, and in 1920 with the Cleveland Indians. Addie Joss threw a perfect game there in 1908. Babe Ruth hit his 500th career home run at League Park. It was the last game that Joe DiMaggio hit safely in his 56-game hitting streak, which ended at Cleveland Stadium. The Plain Dealer wrote this about League Park when it opened in 1891. About the first game on May 1st, 1891, quote, "It was, quote, a magical opening. There never was one like it, and there may never be another." Frank Robeson's 2 trolley lines ran to the park. There was a single deck behind home plate, a covered pavilion behind first base, and a small bleachers section. The owners of a saloon and 2 residences refused to sell their property. That's why there's the unusual dimensions, the very short right field. There were 10,000 fans at League Park opener. It was also at a streetcar stop. The streetcar stop was 20 feet from the entrance, so you take the streetcar, you're right there. It was built very quickly. Robeson received his building permit on February 12, 1891, so he could start construction. There was little foul ground for the stadium. The wooden park was built quickly. 6 weeks after construction began, it was ready to be painted. And the Cleveland Spiders players were very impressed by League Park because it had big lockers, hot showers, a spacious clubhouse. Before the home opener, there was a parade from the Hollenden House downtown to the park. Cleveland Spiders and Cincinnati Reds players and a 16-piece band were in that parade. The Spiders were on the rise. As I said, there were 3 World Series played in the coming 5 years, and 4 years from 1891, they would win the championship. Ed McKean, Jimmy Mcalary, Ed Beaton, Jersey Backley, Cy Young, Ed Delahanty, who actually wasn't on the team anymore. Well, he played for the Infants the year before. And Cupid Childs received money from baseball shoes endorsements. Cy Young had his first full year with the Spiders. Now, in spring training, the Spiders had they had their first spring training in Florida. And for the first time, two Major League Baseball players played each other in Florida, and it was the Spiders against the Pirates. Spiders won 6-3 in St. Augustine, Florida, where my mother lived actually in the 1940s. As I said, the home opener had 9,500. The seating capacity was only 6,000, so they really jammed people in. It was the biggest crowd for a baseball game in Cleveland since July 4th, 1889. And the Spiders played very well at home. Their record at League Park in 1891 was 40-28. Now, during the season, the Spiders' record was 65-74. Not great, but much better than in 1890. They finished in 5th place in the National League. The first place team was the Boston Bean Eaters, who were 87-51, so they won the pennant. Second place, the Chicago Colts, 82-53. Third place, the New York Giants, 71-61. Fourth place, the Philadelphia Phillies, 68-69. Fifth place, the Cleveland Spiders, 65-74. Sixth place, the Brooklyn Grooms, 61-76. Seventh place, the Cincinnati Reds, 56-81. And in eighth and last place, the Pittsburgh Pirates, who were 55-80. Now, the manager at the start of the year was Robert Leadley, who was returning. He'd been the manager in 1890, and he only managed the team for part of the year. He was fired during the middle of the season and replaced by Patsy Tebow, who was the player manager for the rest of the year. Tebow was the regular third baseman, and remember, he had 261, 8 doubles, 3 triples, a home run, 41 RBIs, 12 stolen bases in 61 games. Tebow had been played for the Spiders in 89 and then in 90 with the Infants, and then he was back with the Spiders again from 91 till 98. And he had impressed people as the Infants manager. That's why he got the job as the Spiders manager. And there was a late April game. Spiders and Pirates were playing in Pittsburgh. Jake Beckley, the Pirates' first baseman, was playing first, and Beckley spiked Tebow. Spiking means they wore these spikes on the bottom of their shoes, and this guy Beckley intentionally, spiked Tebow, which is easy to happen. Guys are running out of ground ball, running to first, and this was so he hit Tebow in his ankle with his spikes, and Tebow was severely wounded, had a severe injury, confined to bed. Now, this was dirty play. Tebow said this, quote, "Beckley has injured more men on the diamond than any 3 players." Tebow was out till July, so this was tough, losing Tebow for quite some time. And that injury bothered him for the rest of his career. Ed McKean, the shortstop, said this, quote, "I want Tebow back on the team. I know there is nobody in the country that can see a fine point as quickly, and we need such a man now." Tebow had saved a man from drowning who had fallen into a fountain at the Kennard House, a downtown hotel. The replacement was made on July 11th. Tebow replaced Leadley as manager. And some people believe this is when the history of the Spiders began, because Tebow was their tremendous player manager. His style was to have a scrappy fighting ball club. He said this, quote, "My instructions to my players are to win games, and I want them to be aggressive. A milk and water goody-goody player can't wear a Cleveland uniform." Charles Comiskey had been Tebow's manager with the St. Louis Browns, and of course Comiskey Park eventually was named. He became the owner of the Chicago White Sox, and they named Comiskey Park after him. Comiskey inspired Tebow to be a fighter. And after becoming a manager, he dismissed Leadley's favorite players, including Jack Doyle. And it was said Tebow, quote, "set to housekeeping by weeding out the lobsters who were being toted around the country by his theoretical and cloud-pushing predecessor." Now, Tebow expected all players to join in a fight. You know, there would be some conflict, a fight would start, and then all the guys were supposed to come out and fight. And one day there was a fight, and Cy Young did not join. He was punished by Tebow with 11 days in the bullpen. He was taken out of the rotation. Reed Browning, Cy Young's biographer, wrote this, quote, "A scrapper himself, Patsy Tebow sought to infuse in each player a fierce sense of enmity toward all opponents, and under his direction the Spiders raised rowdiness to an art form. To Tebow, a game was a battle." Patsy Tebow said this, quote, "Show me a team of fighters, and I'll show you a team that has a chance." Now, Chief Zimmer was back as catcher, tremendous player, and he was a key player on this team, and he hit .255, 21 doubles, 4 triples, 3 home runs, 69 RBIs, and 15 stolen bases. And he, of course, had this tremendous career with Cleveland from 1887 to 1899. Chief Zimmer. Jake Virtue was back at first base. Virtue hit .261, 19 doubles, 14 triples, 2 home runs, 72 RBIs, and 15 stolen bases. Virtue was in the middle or the second year of his 4-year career with Cleveland, and he won a box of cigars for 2 long hits in the home opener. Jake Virtue. Cleveland had a new second baseman, Cupid Childs, who hit .281, 21 doubles, 12 triples, 2 home runs, 83 RBIs, and 39 stolen bases. He was a tremendous addition to the team. Childs was from Calvert County, Maryland. He died in Baltimore, Maryland in 1912 at age 45. Career average of .306. 20 home runs, 743 RBIs, 1,214 runs scored. Childs played for the Philadelphia Quakers, Syracuse Stars, Cleveland Spiders, St. Louis Perfectos, and Chicago Orphans between 1888 and 1901. In 1892, he was the National League runs scored leader. He had a pudgy appearance. They called him Cupid because he resembled a cherub, which is a small, plump-winged boy, or which is an angel. He died of cirrhosis and nephritis. Must have had a drinking problem. He was with the Spiders from 1891 to 1898, and he won the title with the Spiders in 1895. Childs would become one of Cleveland's most dependable and popular players. He was one of 11 children. His dad died when he was young. He was born on a Maryland farm, and the family moved to Baltimore. Childs had a round face and cheeks. The Grand Rapids, Michigan newspaper wrote this, quote, "Childs is the most curiously built man in the baseball business. He's about as wide as he is long and weighs about as much as boxer Jim Jeffries. Yet there are few men in the league who can get over the ground faster than the Dumpling." They called him the Dumpling. Cupid Childs, tremendous player. Ed McKean was back at shortstop. McKean hit .282, 13 doubles, 12 triples, 6 home runs, 69 RBIs, and 14 stolen bases. And McKean was in his long career with Cleveland from 1887 to 1898. His signature play was calling time to tie his shoes to give his pitcher a breather. He had a very low strikeout per at-bat ratio. He only struck out one time for 31.7 at-bats in 1891, the third best in the National League. He only struck out 19 times all year. So when there were 2 strikes on Ed McKean, he would cut down on his powerful swing to make contact, try to get on base. Ed McKean, tremendous player. And now in the outfield, Jimmy Mcalary was back. Mcalary hit .239, 16 doubles, 11 triples, a home run, 61 RBIs, and 51 stolen bases. Mcalary was a tremendous defensive center outfielder. Played for the Spiders from 89 to 98, so a fine 9-year career in Cleveland. Spud Johnson was a new outfielder, regular player. He hit .257, 8 doubles, 3 triples, a home run, 46 RBIs, 16 stolen bases in 80 games. Davis was from Canada. He died. His death information is not known. Johnson hit .302 for his career, 4 home runs, 238 RBIs. He played for the Columbus Solons and Cleveland Spiders between 1889 to 1891. So just a brief career. He was the AAA RBI leader in 1890. Also played third base. In 1890, he hit .346. Nothing much is known of his whereabouts after he left organized baseball. So that's a mystery because he was playing very well. He was a .300 hitter and then left the MLB. Spud Johnson. George Davis was back in the outfield. Davis hit .289, 35 doubles, 12 triples, 3 home runs, 89 RBIs, and 42 stolen bases. Tremendous year for George Davis. He was in the middle of his career in Cleveland from 1890 to 1892. Patsy Tebow could not see that George Davis had star potential. They called him Gorgeous George. Fans called him that. Tebow didn't think he was tough enough and traded him away in a bad trade to the Giants in 1893 for needed cash and an over-the-hill Buck Ewing. Ewing gave Cleveland a good year, but Davis had a tremendous year, so that was a bad trade when we traded George Davis in. He was traded primarily because he didn't fight enough. George Davis. Now the bench players, Jack Doyle hit .276, 14 doubles, 3 triples, 43 RBIs, 24 stolen bases in 69 games. Doyle was a first baseman from Killorglin, Ireland. He died in Holyoke, Massachusetts in 1958 at age 89. Career average of .299, 25 home runs, 968 RBIs, 516 stolen bases. Doyle played for the Columbus Solons, Cleveland Spiders, New York Giants, Baltimore Orioles, Washington Senators, Chicago Orphans, Brooklyn Superbas, Philadelphia Phillies, New York Highlanders between 1889 and 1905. He also was the manager for the New York Giants and Washington Senators in 1895 and 96. Doyle won a title with the Orioles in 96. He was 4 times he was in the top 10 in stolen bases, 96, 97, 1900, and 1903. He's 31st all-time in stolen bases with 516. Doyle had a 70-year baseball career. In 1894, he hit .367. In 1897, he hit .354. In 1892, he was the first pinch hitter in MLB history on June 7th with the Spiders, and he had a walk-off single. They called him Dirty Jack. He had feuds with umpires, fans, and opposing players. He once punched an umpire who called him out on an attempted steal and got arrested. He jumped into the stands one day and punched a fan. He had a lengthy feud with John McGraw. After his playing career, he became a long-time Chicago Cubs scout, and he found guys, some of the tremendous players like Gabby Hartnett, Hack Wilson, Stan Hack, Charlie Root, and Phil Cavaretta. Now in the Irish Baseball League, today in Ireland, the best slugger wins the Dirty Jack Doyle Silver Slugger Award. So he's remembered in Ireland today, Jack Doyle. Very good. He became the police commissioner in Holyoke, Massachusetts from 1908 to 1909. He was a National League umpire for 42 games in 1911. Jack Doyle. Now Jesse Burkett was a new player, tremendous addition. He was not yet a regular player. He hit .269, 7 doubles, 4 triples, 13 RBIs, a stolen base in 40 games. Burkett was a left fielder from Wheeling, West Virginia. He died in Worcester, Massachusetts. For his career, he hit .338, 75 home runs, 2,850 hits, 389 stolen bases. Burkett played for the New York Giants, Cleveland Spiders, St. Louis Perfectos, St. Louis Cardinals, and St. Louis Browns and Boston Americans between 1890 and 1905. He won a World Series as a coach in 1921 with the New York Giants, 3-time National League batting champion in 1895, 96, and 1901. Burkett was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1946. They called him Crab because he had a serious disposition. He batted over .400 twice. He was the college baseball coach at Holy Cross for 4 years. Burkett managed in the minor leagues until 1933. The Sporting News in 1903 wrote this, quote, "Jesse is one of the most constant and one of the rankest kidders in the business. That would be all right if he could take a kid himself, but the moment that somebody comes back at him with a few facts stated in sarcastic words, he goes wild and wants to fight." Burkett said this, quote, "You got to be a battler. If you don't, they'll walk all over you. After you lick 3 or 4 of them, they don't show up anymore looking for a fight." In September 1890, Burkett dove for a ball in deep right field, and he tore the foul flag out of the ground. And then he panicked. He could not find the ball. He didn't know where the ball was. And he assumed the ball was in the hole. And he began digging dirt from the hole. He was panicking, and then, which was kind of a crazy thing to do. He thought it was buried in the buried in that hole, and then it was written, quote, "A Scotch Terrier in quest of a chipmunk could not have made the dust fly more furiously." So there he was out there, and the ball, was somewhere, in the area, but he just didn't see it, and he thought it was in the hole. And he was digging and digging like a dog digging for a bone. Everyone started laughing, the whole stadium, and it was a very embarrassing moment for Jesse Crab Burkett. Anyway, he was a major component when in these teams, when the Spiders played in 3 World Series and won 1. God bless Jesse Burkett. Another bench player was Jerry Denny, who hit .225, 5 doubles, 21 RBIs, 3 stolen bases in 36 games. Denny was a third baseman from New York, New York. He died in Houston, Texas in 1927 at age 68. Career average of .260, 1,286 hits, 714 runs. Denny played for the Providence Grays, St. Louis Maroons, Indianapolis Hoosiers, New York Giants, Cleveland Spiders, Philadelphia Phillies, and Louisville Colonels between 1881 and 1894. He won a title in 1884 with the Providence Grays. He is the last MLB player who played his entire career without wearing a fielding glove, and he played in the minor leagues until 1902. Fielding gloves gradually gained acceptance between 1885 and 1895. Denny could throw with either arm. Very interesting. Jerry Denny. John Sheeran was another bench player. Sheeran hit .242, 30 hits, a double, a triple, 13 RBIs, 6 stolen bases in 30 games. He also did some pitching. Was 1-3 with a 3.52 ERA, 5 starts and 4 complete games. Sheeran was primarily an outfielder from Pennsylvania. He died in Chicago, Illinois in 1932 at age 60 or 61. Career average of .218, 0 home runs, 16 RBIs, and he played for the Cleveland Spiders in 1891 and 1896, and then in the minor leagues until 1903. John Sheeran. Billy Alvord was another bench player. Alvord hit .288, 2 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 7 RBIs in 13 games. Alvord was a third baseman from St. Louis, Missouri. He died in St. Petersburg, Florida in 1927 at age 63. Career average of .253, 3 home runs, 109 RBIs. Alvord played for the St. Louis Maroons, Kansas City Cowboys, Toledo Mommies, and Cleveland Spiders, Washington Statesmen, and back with the Spiders between 1885 and 1893. They called him Uncle Bill, Billy Alvord. Ed Seward. Now we're getting into the pitching staff. Ed Seward, as a hitter, hit .211, 2 doubles, an RBI at 7 games. His record as a pitcher was 2-1 with a 3.86 ERA, 3 starts. Seward was from Cleveland, Ohio. He died in Cleveland in 1947 at age 80. Career record of 89 and 72. 3.40 ERA, 589 strikeouts. Seward pitched for the Providence Grays, Philadelphia Athletics, and Cleveland Spiders between 1885 and 1891. In 1888, he was the American Association leader in strikeouts and shutouts. In the same year, he threw a no-hitter. They called him Kid. He was an umpire for 27 games in 1892 and 1893. Ed Seward. Marty Sullivan was a bench player, hit .250, 1 hit, an RBI in 1 game. Sullivan was an outfielder from Lowell, Massachusetts. He died in Lowell in 1894 at age 31. Career average of .273, 26 home runs, 220 RBIs. Sullivan played for the Chicago White Stockings, Indianapolis Hoosiers, Boston Beaneaters, and Cleveland Spiders between 1887 and 1891. Marty Sullivan. Joe Daley was another bench player. Played in 1 game, 3 at-bats, did not get a hit. Daley was an outfielder catcher from Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. He died in Philadelphia in 1943 at age 74. Career average of .269, 0 home runs, 7 RBIs. Played for the Philadelphia Athletics, Cleveland Spiders, and Boston Beaneaters between 1890 and 1892. His brother Tom was also an MLB player. Joe Daley. Bill Collins was another bench player. Collins played in 2 games, had 3 at-bats, did not get a hit. Collins was a catcher from Dublin, Ireland, and he died in Brooklyn, New York in 1893 at age 30. Career average of .167, 1 RBI, a stolen base. Collins played for the New York Metropolitans, Philadelphia Athletics, and Cleveland Spiders between 1887 and 1891. Now the pitching staff, our ace pitcher was Cy Young. Cy Young, as a hitter, hit .167, 5 doubles, 3 triples, a home run, 18 RBIs, and two 2 stolen bases. His pitching record, Young won 27 games, lost 22, an ERA of 2.85, 46 starts, 43 complete games, and 2 saves. Young played for the Spiders from 1898 to 1898. He was the new number 1 pitcher. He was our ace pitcher. His 27 victories was most by a Cleveland pitcher since Jim McCormick. His 1891 contract was for $1,430. Young had typhoid fever in the off-season. After winning the home opener, Young said this, quote, "I wouldn't have lost that game for $100. He had 3 days rest between starts. On July 17th, Cy hit his first Major League Baseball home run inside the park. He had speed, endurance, composure, and intelligence. In June, the Sporting Life wrote this, quote, "Cy Young would rather lose 10 ball games than do an ungentlemanly act on the ball field." Reed Browning, his biographer, wrote this, quote, "To be sure, Young was a fighter, intense, driven, relentless. His language could be as colorful as anyone else's, but he fought through his pitching, not his punching. He did not hold to the notion that either in baseball or in life, violence was an appropriate response to disappointment. It took Patsy DeBow several months to accept this truth about Young. Ultimately, the manager accepted Young's way. Never again in his decade-long tenure as Young's manager did he use the pitcher in 3 consecutive relief appearances. It was this reconciliation between a strong-willed manager and a resolute pitcher that, more than any other factor, made Cleveland a strong team for the next 6 years." So that was good they worked that out because he didn't get involved in that fight. Patsy DeBow took him out of the rotation, our best pitcher. Cy Young had a very strong year. He got a raise. The salary was raised to $2,000 for 1892. He was a very hard worker. He had control problems early on, but became MLB's best controlled pitcher with the fewest walks. Cy Young, from the famous Cy Young Award, or that's where that award originates. Henry Gruber was the second pitcher in the rotation. Gruber hit 163, 3 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 20 RBIs. Gruber's record as a pitcher, he won 17, lost 22, ERA of 4.13, 40 starts, 35 complete games, and a shutout. And Gruber had played for the Spiders in 89 and the Infants in 1890, and he was back with the Spiders in 1891. Henry Gruber. Another starting pitcher was Lee Viau, who hit 160, 3 doubles, 2 triples, 6 RBIs, 2 stolen bases. His record as a pitcher, he won 18, lost 17, ERA of 3.01, 38 starts, and 31 complete games. Viau pitched for the Spiders from 1890 to 1892. He was a character. He had many alcohol-fueled escapades. He refused to pitch on Sundays because of religious reasons, but usually spent the Sabbath drinking and getting into trouble. Gus Schmeltz said, quote, "Viau's good looks were written all over the American Association circuit in 1888. And while we, the Cincinnati Reds, were on the road, scores of women actually came to the train to bask in the radiance of Lee's charms." Lee Viau. Ed Beaton was another pitcher. Beaton hit .077, 1 hit and 13 at-bats, and his record as a pitcher was 0-3 with a 5.28 ERA, 4 starts, and 2 complete games. Beaton pitched for the Spiders from 89 to 91. Beaton had thrown 474 innings pitched in 1890. His arm was worn out. He only pitched 29 innings in 1891, and his career was over at age 24. Ed Beaton. Frank Noss was another pitcher. He hit 167, 1 hit, and 6 at-bats. Noss's one-loss record was 0-3 with an ERA of 7.20, 3 starts and a complete game. Noss was from Cleveland, Ohio. He died. His death information is not known. Career record of 17-16, an ERA of 3.30, 159 strikeouts. Noss pitched for the Columbus Solons, Cleveland Spiders, Cincinnati Reds, and New York Giants between 1890 and 1895. He appeared at an old-timers game in 1921 at League Park at age 54. Frank Noss. Another pitcher was Henry Killeen. He batted 3 times, did not get a hit, pitching record of 0-1, ERA of 6.23, 1 start and 1 complete game. Killeen was born in Troy, New York. He died in Waterbury, Connecticut in 1916 at age 44. His MLB career was just for Cleveland in 1891, but he continued in the minor leagues until 1899. Henry Killeen. And finally, Pretzels Getzian batted 4 times, did not get a hit, had a one-loss record, was 0-1 with an ERA of 8.00, 1 start and 1 complete game. Pretzels Getzian was from Germany. He died in Chicago, Illinois in 1932 at age 64. Career record of 145 and 139. ERA 3.46. 1,070 strikeouts. Getzian pitched for the Detroit Wolverines, Indianapolis Hoosiers, Boston Beaneaters, Cleveland Spiders, St. Louis Browns between 1884 and 1892. He won a World Series with the Detroit Wolverines in 1884. He's the first German MLB player. He called him Pretzels because pretzels were considered a German food. He had 277 complete games, which is 58th in MLB history on the ranking. The 1886 Detroit Free Press wrote this, quote, "The pretzel is all right. He went into the box today and pitched one of his finest. His curves circling around in the form of the delicious pastry from which Getz takes his sobriquet." In 1887, the Detroit fans bought him, quote, "an elegant $200 gold watch and chain." For the 1887 World Series with Detroit, which Detroit won, Getziels did well and helped them win the World Series, won a couple games. In Game 10, he had a no-hitter through 8 innings. Now, after the season, the Boston Beaneaters had won the National League. They were champions. The Boston Reds were American Association champions. However, there was no World Series in 1891 because the Beaneaters declined to play the Reds. So there was no, you just had the 2 champions of the 2 leagues. So that's the story of the 1891 Cleveland Spiders. They were a team with a future, with a lot of interesting characters, a lot of tremendous players. God bless the guys who played for the Cleveland Spiders in 1891, and everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the Civil War veterans. Captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Stamp statue, and the Fountain of Eternal Life, Severance Hall stalwarts, First Energy Stadium friends, Quicken Loans Arena enthusiasts, Progressive Field pals. Tribe, Browns, Cavs, and Monsters rule. Cleveland, city of champions. It's been 70 years since 1948. This is our year. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.